Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming along to our session today, the Class Act Fostering Inclusion and Alleviating Communication Anxiety. I really hope you're having a great conference so far and we're really happy to be here. My name is Ben Scott and I am joined today by my colleague Courtney Aitken, and we are really happy to be representing PresentPal here today. For those of you who may not know, PresentPal is a communication software app that allows you to create interactive and accessible notes to support your communication and presentations. We're really excited to show you PresentPal today, but also some really cutting edge research that we've conducted on presentations and learning, and how UDL and PresentPal can intersect and come into support in those environments as well. So as I mentioned, my name's Ben. I'm our customer research manager here. I've previously studied psychology at the University of St Andrews and did some research on how to make mindfulness activities accessible for all. And as I mentioned, now researching presentations and how UDL can get involved, but also how presentations make people feel and what solutions we can potentially present them as well. I'm also joined by Courtney, and I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Hello everyone, I'm Courtney Aitken and I am the research advisor here at PresentPal, and I'm also completing my PhD in cognitive psychology.
Amazing, thanks so much. We do have our email addresses and our Twitter handles on screen at the moment as well. So while you are watching our session, if you do have any questions, comments, or just want to open up a discussion, please do reach out to us at absolutely any time. We'll be more than happy to have a wee chat with you. So yeah, absolutely. Let's get kick-started. So I'll just run through our commitment to accessibility. So at PresentPal, we are really passionate about making any piece of content that we put out as accessible as possible. And in particular, for this presentation, here are some of the steps that we've taken to ensure that. So all of our font faces are accessible. We have made sure that there is a minimum font size of 20 pixels on all our slides, and that there is a color contrast ratio of at least 9:1 as well. We don't have any white backgrounds on the slides, and there is alt text available on all of our images and videos used throughout the presentation. We do have closed captioning available for this session recording as well. And to turn this on, just simply click the CC button at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And we'll also be sharing this presentation slide deck with you, so you will be able to download this for yourself. And we do have a PDF handout available, which has some really great extra material, some supplementary resources, as well as all of the links and content that we've used throughout our presentation as well. If you haven't done so already, we'd also love for you guys to introduce yourself to us as well. You can follow the link by scanning the QR code or by this bit.ly link here as well. And this will take you to our collaborative Google slide deck. And on this, we would really love for you to fill in who you are, where you're from, what maybe some of your favorite presentation tips are, your favorite speech of all time, and you can use pictures, text, videos, audio, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And we just really want to connect with you guys, learn who we're speaking to, and create a global community of like-minded people who are really passionate about education and presentation equity as well. There's also one of these boxes free, so you can jump back in after our presentation and fill in some of your key takeaways or key learnings as well. Nice, so let's get started. So in today's session, we aim to explore the psychology of presentations and communication anxiety for learners. We'll demonstrate PresentPal and the UDL framework with an aim to understand how you can implement PresentPal in your UDL environment. I think a great starting point for us, and to give you guys some context about PresentPal, is to introduce you to our founder and CEO, Chris Hughes. I'll play a little video clip shortly where Chris will discuss his experience as a dyslexic student at university and the challenges he faced and how he ended up creating PresentPal. So I'll just play that for you now.
Hey guys, I'm Chris Hughes, founder and CEO of PresentPal. PresentPal is a presentation support software which I created out of my own experience as a student with dyslexia. 2 weeks into my business degree, I discovered we had to give a presentation almost every week as part of our degree. And after a few months, I established this is something that I really struggled with, and there was no support available for me. I went and met with my disability service, and I was told that this was a problem that they heard all the time, but there was next to no support available.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris, for doing that for us. So as you saw, Chris created PresentPal out of his own struggle to receive support from his disability services when he went to them about his presentation challenges. When Chris was told that, he was a bit disappointed, but being the type of person he is, he wasn't going to take no for an answer and went about creating his own solution. He was really determined to level the playing field for his peers and himself, really give everyone the same opportunities to develop what are really vital oral communication skills. And that is why he went about creating PresentPal. So before we dive into a little bit of a product demonstration for you guys, I'm going to pass over to Courtney, who's going to run through some of the research we have been conducting as part of our neurodiversity white paper. And she's going to explore a little bit about why presentations are used and why they can be challenging for learners as well. So Courtney, I'll let you take it away.
Hey guys.
Hello everyone. So in today's modern classroom, no two students are the same. Recent estimates state that we can expect 1 in 5 students to be neurodiverse. Now, neurodiversity is an advocacy term rather than a scientific one, but it's used to express all the brain differences and variations that can impact learning, sociability, attention, mood, and other cognitive functioning. So 3 well-known conditions that people in the neurodiverse community may have are dyslexia, like our founder Chris, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorder. We've also seen a real shift in the last 20 years to active and interactive learning practices. So traditional models of education view a teacher as the sole instructor and the student as a mere recipient of learning. But in recent years, educational approaches have really sought to take advantage of the social context in classrooms and the increasing opportunities for multimedia approaches. So as a result, in-class presentations are increasingly being used as a form of learning activity and crucially as a form of assessment. Much of this move to asking students to prepare and conduct in-class presentations is driven by a prevailing view that given the opportunity for cross-curricular learning, active learning that focuses on skill acquisition is much more important than traditional teacher-centric delivery. So, why would active learning benefit students more? Well, psychologically, presentations are very complex and they implicate a lot of cognitive processes as well as much higher order psychological processes that allow us to reason and make sense of material. This is a model diagram from our recent research paper, Supporting Neurodiversity in the Modern Classroom. And it's due to be published soon. And if you're interested in the research we've conducted, we will give you some details later on how to keep up to date with this publication. So I'll take you through this diagram, which looks complicated at first, but if we break down the presentation process into 2 parts, we would first on this slide, we have some examples of the psychological processes that are involved in preparing a presentation. When we begin a presentation, it involves some researching or planning, and we could break this down further into reading and note-taking. And it's important to stress that these are difficult abilities as it is. No matter who you are, reading and writing are abilities we all need instruction in from a very young age. It's not an innate ability. So to do this on an ongoing basis, we need to use sensory and somatosensory processes to view words, to recognize them, translate those written symbols into a mental representation or sub-vocalization, also that kind of voice in your head idea, and comprehend the meaning of that text. To then start planning and putting pen to paper, so to speak, we need to use that comprehension and the mental knowledge representation gained from that and translate it into note-taking, which relies on motor control, regardless of whether you are typing, writing, or dictating. So after researching our presentation, we would move on to prepare the presentation. And in preparing a presentation, we begin to implicate these higher order psychological processes that educators are usually interested in developing in learners. So in selecting material to present, we're working on justified reasoning and on decision making. And in arranging material, we're being both creative and logical by planning and organizing information on the page. We then move on to rehearse and learn the presentation, so to speak. And this involves memory processes of learning and memory encoding, as well as recall when rehearsing that presentation. So after preparing our presentation, we would hopefully get a chance to be able to conduct that presentation. And at its simplest, conducting a presentation is presenting material and answering questions. Now, these diagrams look relatively complex, but if we put ourselves in the scenario of conducting a presentation ourselves, we can see how all these psychological processes play a role. So delivering presentations are usually psychologically very taxing. They require performance under a very high cognitive load. We need to recall information from long-term memory processes, all that material that we learned using our rehearsal and practicing sessions. We need to ensure we stay on task by making use of our executive functions. Now, executive functions involve task focus and prioritization, which is ensuring you remain talking about a certain slide versus another, or staying on task essentially. And then we have self-monitoring and adaptation. So we have to adapt when there's a slip up, like temporarily forgetting a word or mispronouncing a word. And it also requires working memory. And this is everything from material you need to say in the immediate short term, to keeping an idea of timing, to knowing when to change slides and other key performance milestones. For example, when I'm presenting now, I have to have an awareness of what I've just said, use information working memory to make my current points, keep information in short-term memory to know what to say next, and keep relatively longer-term goals in mind, like reaching a certain point with effective pronunciation and expression. So then we have emotion and impulse control. Now, presentations can be very anxiety provoking, or for some people, they may be a source of excitement. People might enjoy the performance element of presentations. But in either case, whether you love them or loathe them, you need to ensure that you keep your emotional experience within manageable limits for your own performance and the audience's enjoyment and understanding of the presentation. And then finally, there is always ongoing planning and time management. So then we move on to non-verbal communicative aspects of presentation. And there's a huge amount of non-verbal communication that goes on in conducting a presentation. We need to keep tabs of social cues from the audience. So perhaps some of your audience, hopefully not, might be a bit bored, or maybe they're even just become overly excited from a really interesting point in the presentation. You as a presenter need to keep tabs on that so that you can modulate your performance to keep your performance on track and ensure that your audience get everything that you want to communicate to them from the speech in its entirety. We also may need to be keeping an idea on audience gestures, or perhaps a presentation chair's gestures, like knocking on a table when you've got 5 minutes to go, or if an audience member puts up a hand to ask a question. These are really important to be able to be aware of. And then finally, eye contact and connecting socially with your audience is also really important. So all in all, we can see how complex presentations are as a cognitive, an emotional, and a social process. And here we have just a few of the challenges that people from the neurodiverse community may have when conducting presentations. If you're a person who is part of the neurodiverse community, you may have a condition or a learning difference that already makes it a lot harder to manage the extreme cognitive load presentations put people under. For example, people with dyslexia may already present as having working memory difficulties. In-class presentations compound these challenges and make it difficult to learn and perform in the same way as their neurotypical peers. And we also have a lot of quantitative and established evidence to support this. Thinking about the real world picture, we know that dyslexic students show significantly higher levels of state anxiety. State anxiety is the transitory, temporary feelings of anxiety you may feel in a given triggering situation. Dyslexic learners also show higher levels of academic anxiety, which is the apprehension felt over completing and participating in academic tasks, like in-class presentations. And they also show higher levels of social anxiety. So that might be fears of social situations like meeting and speaking to people. And all of these are relative to their non-neurotypical or neurotypical peers that do not have learning differences. We also know that 23% of people with ADHD have an anxiety disorder, and 50% of people with autism spectrum disorder have social anxiety, with public speaking being a significant source of that anxiety. So all of these established findings point to the need to deliver a valid, a usable, and an empowering solution for communication anxiety in the neurodiverse community. But ultimately, this is a universal challenge. Presentation anxiety is an experience is something that a majority of learners have experienced. Recent survey estimates have 95% of learners experiencing presentation anxiety at some point. And experiencing presentation anxiety is something that we know can negatively impact presentation performance and self-efficacy in public speaking. So it's no surprise that public speaking is often rated as Americans' #1 fear. What does that mean for learners in a new active learning environment where presentations and public speaking are expected to be the norm? Across K through 12, further and higher education, 93% of learners have compulsory presentations at some point in their course or academic term. So this is not just an issue that affects learners in the neurodiverse community, like our founder Chris, who has dyslexia. It is a universal challenge. So I'll now pass you back over to my colleague Ben, who will take you through our solution to communication anxiety.
Great, thank you so much, Courtney. I think that's really interesting to sort of understand that psychological and evidence-based perspective onto why presentations can be beneficial, but also the barriers and challenges that they can create as well, not only for neurodiverse learners, but for all learners as well. And I think this takes us really nicely on to PresentPal. And PresentPal, like I mentioned at the start, is a presentation support software that improves communication skills for all learners. The app works on both iOS and Android, smartphones and tablets, and it even fully integrates with Microsoft PowerPoint through our PresentPal add-in. So PresentPal works like a deck of interactive flashcards right on your smart device, displaying the information that you need right when you need it. Users are encouraged to enter 3 to 5 key bullet points of keywords from their presentation or the communication task right onto their PresentPal notes, and then the app guides them through that presentation task from start to finish. With our rehearsal mode feature, users can practice their communication task. The app audio records. So by that, I mean when you are practicing your presentation, for example, Rehearsal records your audio, and then once you have finished your rehearsal, you can jump back in, listen back flashcard by flashcard, and self-assess. Think about what was really good or what maybe needs some improvement for next time. And what's really neat is that on our rehearsal dashboard, for each deck of flashcard that you have, you can track your progress across time, so you can really give yourself that confidence boost when you can see that you are improving. What is really great about PresentPal, and it's something that we are really passionate about, is our accessibility and visual settings. So right from the get-go, you can customize the PresentPal app to your own visual preferences. And this is a really great opportunity because it means that you're giving the user the choice to make the app work in a way that is best for them. So you can choose from 8 different accessible color overlays that are used throughout the app. I personally have this beautiful blue one that's on screen at the moment. This is the one that creates the least visual stress for myself. There's also a number of accessible fonts that you can choose from Open Dyslexic, for example, to Open Sans. And you can also change the font size as well, which is great for me because I can't see anything without my contacts in. But it's also really good for VI users as well. A new feature in our update that rolled out a few weeks ago is dark mode. So this is all intended to reduce eye strain for VI users as well. Our latest update also fully integrates with the accessibility settings that are inbuilt to your smart device so that you can use the app optimally as you would any other. So say, for example, you might use a screen reader or an app switcher. You can now fully use PresentPal with those devices as well. We also have an accessible scroll functionality, and by this I mean you can toggle on the option to have a scroll up and down button placed on your screen, and this allows you to navigate the app without having to rely on a scrolling motion, which could potentially be challenging for someone that might have dexterity or motor control challenges. As I mentioned, we are really passionate about accessibility, and everything in the app, from the fonts to the colors, are WCAG 3.0 AAA standard. So how does PresentPal support the UDL framework? Well, nice and simply, PresentPal provides multiple options for engagement, representation, and action and expression. And over the next few slides, I will highlight how PresentPal's features support the UDL framework and guidelines, and you can find these on the CAS website, and we have this linked in our PDF handout as well. So I think a great place to start with exploring our features in a bit more detail is with personalization. Whenever a user starts using PresentPal for the first time, the first thing we always say to them and encourage people to do is to jump straight into the visual settings and start customizing the app to meet your own visual preferences. This is great as it gives the user the option to customize the display of information within the app and really encourages individual choice and autonomy. They are choosing what works best for them individually. They're not choosing what works for everyone else. They are given that individual choice. As I mentioned as well, the app offers alternatives for visual information. This could be simply, as you can see on screen now, throughout the app, when you select something, that's always shown in multiple ways. So on this screenshot, we have the purple overlay selected, and the purple color is surrounded by a box. This is really important for users who may be colorblind and can't signify something's been selected simply by a color change. Users can also toggle on audio cues if they wish, and this allows the PresentPal notes to be read aloud via speech to text, text to speech, sorry. And that can be either through the device's speaker, or you could even simply connect a set of Bluetooth headphones, pop one in, and you can have your notes discreetly read out to you as well as you run through your communication task. Users can use multiple tools for construction and composition in their notes. You're not simply limited to using your inbuilt keyboard on your device that you're using PresentPal on. You can use speech to text and dictate your notes as well, for example. Now, I have stolen this quote. I'm not taking credit for it. And I have the blog post this is taken from in our PDF document as well. But I think this is a great point to raise, and that is that choice plus agency equals learning. I think we're all aware, and I know I'm somewhat preaching to the choir here, that when you give students options and choice, ultimately that creates more opportunities for learning. And while I was researching papers for our white paper and for this presentation, I came across this one by Patel, Cooper and Wynne from 2010, who studied giving students choice in relation to maths homework. So what they did was they had a control group of students where they were given one assignment and they weren't given any choice whatsoever. Everyone was given the same standard piece of homework. And then they had another group of students where the students were able to choose the format that that homework was in. It still covered all the same content, but the format it was presented to them, they had some choice around that. And what they found was that the students that were given choice around the format of their homework not only had their motivation increased, but in fact, they were even more likely to complete the homework as well. And this was compared to the students that were given no choice over the format. So I've linked the study in our handout as well, so you can dive in and read more on that. But I thought it was really interesting because it really underpins the point of choice plus agency equals learning. I thought I would share a quote as well from one of our users, Joanne. Joanne is an accessibility advocate and she herself is a VI user as well. And here she discusses how the color choices in particular really helps her get the most out of PresentPal. So looking at this from my personal perspective and taking into account my preferred color settings, high contrast, this works really well for me. The color contrast works brilliantly and the font size was great. So that's great for Joanne to let us use this. I know she's a really passionate person for accessibility, so it was great to hear that she enjoyed this feature of PresentPal as well. So let's move on to magnified scroll. So when you are creating your notes, we always encourage you to think about the key points you want to communicate. What are the 3 to 5 key bullet points or phrases that are going to trigger your working memory, your long-term memory? You're not going to be putting loads and loads of information or like a script in your bullet points. You're really getting down to the nitty-gritty. What are your key words that you want to communicate here? And the benefit of magnified scroll is that when you are navigating through those 3 to 5 key bullet points in your presentation, the point that you are currently on is magnified compared to the others. So this means that if you are distracted when you are presenting, for example, I'm sure we're all familiar with people presenting on Zoom and animals walk across the screen or something happens. Maybe someone's not got their microphone on mute, for example. That can be distracting and it can throw you off. So all you have to do is simply get your PresentPal up and you look down quickly and you know exactly what point you are on and you can pick up where you left off. The benefit of having your previous and next bullet point on screen as well, slightly smaller and grayed out, it goes back to what Courtney was discussing with supporting your executive functions and working memory, is that you are able to anticipate what you just said. You're able to keep that in mind and you can see what's coming up next as well, so you can start preparing for that also. Because of the magnify scrolling feature and thinking about your key bullet points, this is able to help you clarify your vocabulary, symbols, syntax, and structure. The linear style of this as well really guides information processing and visualization. So why use bullet points? Why are we encouraging people to use bullet points? Well, lots and lots of studies have been done on keywords and different types of note taking. And these are just a couple that I came across while we were doing our research. And first up is a study by Stacey and Kane from 2015. And they found an investigation of lots of different types of note-taking techniques is that when students were encouraged to use bullet points to take notes, this actually encouraged a more active note-taking process. It wasn't your I know I was definitely guilty of this at uni, sometimes just copying and pasting lecture notes from one slide to another. If you're encouraged to summarize things into your own words, it's a much more active process. And as Courtney was mentioning, it's definitely something that's much more beneficial and has been a big shift in focus in the past couple of decades. There's been a lot of studies as well on the benefits of keywords, and this study in particular from 2006 focused on language learning and acquisition. So what they did was they found that compared to other language learning techniques, when the student broke down into keywords, this actually boosted their learning and their memory. And even though this is on language learning, I think the applications to say a presentation environment is really clear, and it's exactly what we aim to do with PresentPal. We're not wanting you to memorize a whole script. Like, that is not practical. It's not a very effective way of delivering content orally. We really want you to think about what keywords are going to kick in that working memory. What do you really want to communicate here? What's going to help you remember what's up next? Another one of our features, and it is a user favorite, is our safety nets. So what safety nets allow you to do is add in any extra additional information that you may otherwise forget when you are communicating. In the example that we have up on screen here, say I'm doing a presentation about the planets and I have how big Mercury is in there, but I can't remember why I have it in there. So I just simply tap into that and it opens up for me. What's really great as well, as you can see, is that you can add images in here as well. So you're able to use multimedia for your communication. This is great, not only because it allows that extra functionality, it's in a format that you have chosen that works for you. You might actually find it easier to describe a picture than you can a block of text. Say you're a medical student, for example, and you're having to do a presentation on the anatomy of the heart. It might be a lot easier for you to have a diagram in your notes and explain that than it is a block of text. What is great about the safety net is exactly what I was saying as well, is that you are given that individual choice and autonomy over the content. You're able to choose what works for you. You can include mind maps in your safety net if you want. If maybe you're a math student and you want to include a formula in there that you might otherwise forget, just snap a quick picture, pop it in. You're given that choice. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. What's really useful as well is that this safety net feature creates an almost scaffolding-like approach. You can build in as many safety nets as you want and have that reassurance and support there. And as your confidence and your independence grows, you can take those away. You might find yourself not tapping them into them as much as possible. And that really develops your own personal coping skills and strategies. And we have some great resources on scaffolding included in our handout as well. So if you are interested in reading up a little bit more about that, then you can dive in and find that there as well. And last up for our features, I'm going to talk a little bit more about rehearsal. So as I mentioned earlier, how rehearsal works is it looks exactly the same when you're rehearsing as it does on that magnified scroll screen when you're presenting, but it records your audio at the same time. And then once you're finished, it takes you to this review screen when you can go flashcard by flashcard and reflect on what went well, or maybe what you would like to improve. So being able to assess your performance really supports and encourages self-reflection. You can think about, okay, well, this flashcard on how old the universe was, for example, I did actually really good on this. So I'm going to give myself a thumbs up and I'll try and replicate that for the rest of my content. Whereas a little further down the line, this bullet point, I could actually maybe change my keywords a bit here. There could be a better way of summarizing this information. So you just tap the needs work button and you can specify that you want to improve on your speech, content, timing, or memory. This is great because it really develops your self-assessment skills. And through this process, you're really clarifying your vocabulary again, your symbols, syntax, and structure, and getting into this sort of habit of rehearsing your presentation before you're giving it really builds up that strategy, your planning and development of these oral communication skills. So what's so great about self-assessment? What are some of the benefits? And some of these are probably pretty obvious, so I do apologize, but I think it's clear that, and lots of studies have been done on this as well, that when pupils are told to self-assess, it improves their achievement and their grades. And I think absolutely a part of this is that this sort of self-assessment process really encourages learners to be responsible for their own learning. They are thinking about what their own personal goals are and thinking about what success means to them rather than success to a whole classroom, for example. This isn't something that's just limited to education. It's not just limited to K-12 or higher ed. It's really something that you can develop as a lifelong skill, whether you're going into the workplace or you are just a lifelong learner. Self-assessment is something that you want to get really good at. You want to be able to look at a piece of work that you've created and think about what you did well, but also have that agency and that autonomy over your work and say, okay, I can improve on this. So through something like PresentPal from a young age, building up that self-assessment is really quite important because it is something that will continue throughout your life. So I think we'll just pause here for a little moment. I'll give my voice a rest and we'll hear from another one of our users. So this is Erin, and we're going to hear about how Erin has used PresentPal to support their learning at university.
Hi, I'm Erin, I'm 22 and I'm studying criminology and sociology at the University of Stirling. My main challenges with presentations is definitely managing my anxiety leading up to it and during the presentation as well. I get very nervous and anxious talking in front of large groups, which was a requirement for my particular course. So having lots of people having all eyes on you watching it, and then on top of it all, it being assessed did definitely cause a lot of anxiety, which was difficult to manage. So compared to previous presentations that I did without the help of PresentPal, I really noticed quite a big difference in my self-confidence and my self-belief in my ability to actually perform presentations. I used to get very, very, very nervous leading up to any kind of presentation I was doing in a seminar. So it was really nice to just have that extra bit of reassurance and knowledge that we're able to practice everything using the app as well.
Perfect, that's great. Thanks so much, Erin, for allowing us to share your story and how PresentPal helped you at university as well. I will include the link to the full video of Erin discussing her experience in our handout as well, and please do feel free to share that with people as well. So last but not least, let's talk about how you can implement UDL as part of your UDL, how you can present, my goodness, words jumbling all over the place, how you can implement PresentPal in your UDL environment. So I've spoken quite a lot about how PresentPal can be used to create inclusive remote and in-person presentations, and that is absolutely the case and is why the product was created. That is why Chris made PresentPal, was to level the playing field and make sure that that environment and that assessment type was accessible and inclusive for everyone and no one was excluded. But actually, as more and more people are implementing PresentPal and are using it, we're actually starting to hear of lots of interesting ways that people are starting to use PresentPal to support UDL within their classroom. And here are just some other examples up on screen. So one that's really interesting that's coming out of some pilots that we are currently running in higher ed in the US is academic coaches using PresentPal to support classroom activities and tasks. So they are using PresentPal to help students structure oral communication discussions. So not your traditional notion of what a presentation is. It's just really formulating ideas in that sort of discussion environment. And they're using PresentPal to make sure their thoughts are down on their device in a linear, structured fashion, and they're able to tap into their safety nets for any extra information as and when they need it. Project Search here in Scotland have been using PresentPal as well with some of their interns, particularly those on the autistic spectrum, with their interview skill courses, which has been really interesting to learn about. They are using PresentPal to help support their mock interviews by able to anticipate what questions they might be asked and structure answers. They're able to use the safety net with images to describe their work, to provide examples. Really, really interesting stuff coming out of there as well. And also the last one I'll discuss on the slide is exam prep. And this one's really interesting, particularly for me and my own experience as a student at university, was when you think about a flashcard, sometimes your immediate thought is, okay, well, flashcard is like exam prep, right? You're writing down your question or your topic on one side, and on the other side, you have your answers. And that's what a lot of people are starting to use PresentPal as well. You have your topic as your flashcard title, your bullet points are your questions, and within your safety net, you have your answers. And then you can jump on into rehearsal mode, quiz yourself, and then use that review process to self-assess, see what your performance is, and then you can come back to that and improve time and time again. So ultimately and overall, PresentPal is a tool for everyone. It is evidence-based and it can help alleviate communication anxiety through a number of our tried and tested features. We can support neurodiverse learners and ultimately create an inclusive classroom. So that brings us really nicely to the end of our session. Thank you so much for watching today. We really do appreciate you taking out the time to watch our session. Make sure to jump back into our collaborative Google Slides and fill in some of your key takeaways. If you do have any questions, as I mentioned, please do get in touch with us, whether that be about our research, be it the product, or you just want to chat about anything. Our email addresses are down the bottom there as well. As Courtney mentioned, our first white paper is about to be published as well. And if you are interested in keeping up to date about the process of that and any research updates, you can follow this link here, and that is in our handout as well, where you'll be able to read our white paper as well. Perfect. Courtney, do you have any last words or final comments?
Thank you everyone for coming, and just make sure to connect with us on our Twitter and Facebook and to keep up to date with anything to do with our white paper and any of our app releases. Yeah,
fantastic. Thank you so much, Courtney, for joining me on this, and special shout out to Mackenzie and the UDL IRN Summit as well. It's going to be a great few days. Thank you so much for having us along, and we hope you have a great rest of your conference. Thank you.